The response to the admittedly horrible non-indictment of Darren Wilson was bad. And it was bad all around. It was bad on both sides. Huffington Post reports the following, quote, "At least a dozen buildings were torched and looted, many of them local businesses that were total losses. Dozens of cars, including 2 police cruisers and rows of vehicles at a car dealership, were also vandalized and left charred. There were also about 150 gunshots fired and about 80 people who were arrested." Now, the last segment we did, I showed you some of the things that the cops did that was bad. For example, they tear-gassed CNN reporters live on the air. A woman was having a heart attack, or she was having some sort of medical emergency. She needed help. At the time, they thought it was a heart attack. It's not confirmed. But she was having some sort of emergency, so they went to the police to say, help, we're having a problem here. They tear-gassed him. So the cops did not say, okay, you're peaceful, you're not, let's only crack down on the people who aren't. No, they still did the broad, crazy crackdowns that don't make any sense, and they escalated the situation. So the cops, there's plenty of blame to go around amongst the cops. But there is also blame to go around amongst the people, not the protesters, but the looters and the rioters. Let me show you some of the property damage.
We watched a beauty wireless store just looted. I watched 20 people or so break in there, and then one young man threatened me for recording it. And right after that, then I saw 2 young women come over and say, this is she's an expletive. They were like, this is our stuff that you're doing this to. Why are you doing this? And so some of them stopped, and then everyone ran out the store. But just people running back and forth all over the street, from where the Ferguson Market, breaking in there, targeting different locations here. And it is mayhem. I mean, there's a car backing down the street in the middle of the street right here. It's mayhem out here.
Now, it goes without saying that the majority of the people in Ferguson were peacefully protesting, and that should not be overlooked. And of course, what you'll have is conservative outlets who do overlook that, and they'll focus on nothing but the negative. At the same time, there were way too many people looting. There was a lot more people looting last night than the first round of looting when the original incident happened. So there were also instances of reporters getting stuff thrown at them while on air. One, it was while they're at McDonald's, a bunch of McDonald's bags got thrown at them. There was another one who got hit in the head with a rock. Okay. Not okay. I actually got into multiple Twitter debates and discussions about this yesterday, and I'm pretty disappointed in about 40% or so, anecdotally from my experience, of my fellow liberals and progressives, because they fell into a trap that we must avoid. Listen to my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talk about nonviolence.
There are 3 ways that oppressed people can deal with their oppression.
What are they, Dr. King?
Well, one is to rise up in open violence, in physical violence. And some persons have used that method, persons who have been oppressed. But I think the danger of that method is its futility. I feel that violence creates many more social problems than it solves.
May I interrupt you there, Dr. King? There are today certainly people who are forced to endure a kind of injustice that neither you nor even Gandhi in his time had ever seen. For example, would you regard the martyrs of Hungary's rebellion a year ago as misguided men and having used violence?
I admire freedom fighters wherever they are, but I still believe that nonviolence is the strongest approach. I think that would apply to the Hungarian situation also. I don't think it's limited to a particular locality. I think it should apply in every situation in the world where individuals seek to break loose from the bondage of colonialism or from some totalitarian regime or from the system which we confront in America.
You truly believe, then, that nonviolence is the sole, the universal answer to injustice and oppression?
Very definitely. Very definitely. I feel that nonviolence, organized nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon that oppressed people can use in breaking loose from the bondage of oppression. Now, the other method that one might use is that of resignation or acquiescence. But I think that is just as bad as violence, because non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good.
You make a difference, a distinction between passive resistance and nonviolent resistance, is that it?
Well, I think that can be something of a semantical problem. If passive resistance means just passively accepting violence or injustice, if it means cowardice and stagnant passivity, then there is a difference, because nonviolent resistance does resist. It is dynamically active. It is passive physically, but it is strongly active spiritually.
In a sense, would you regard it as moving into the Christian philosophy too? You mean the doctrine of turn the other cheek to regard as positive rather than passive?
I think it is positive. I think very definitely, if it is used properly and accepted with the proper attitude, it is a very strong method. It is a method of the strong man, not the weak man.
Again, a majority of the people protesting in Ferguson were peaceful. This message is to all the people who weren't peaceful and all the people who support those actions to try to get the desired result of justice. What Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would say, and what he clearly said time and time again, is that violence is futile and it creates more problems than it solves. And he says nonviolence is not acquiescence. It's not like we lay down and passively say, okay, establishment and injustice, you win. No, nonviolence is a tool of the strong, because it's hard to stand there and say, I don't care how wrong you treat me, I will take the moral high ground. That's what a strong person does. It's easy to give in to your anger and lash out. See, people don't know this about Jesus, for example. The whole message of Jesus, when they talk about turn the other cheek, that does not mean, hey, you did something wrong to me, I'm going to turn the other cheek and walk away. In fact, what it means is, oh, you hit me on this cheek? Well, let me go ahead and present the other cheek to you, and you can hit that one too, because I'm stronger than you. You can't beat me on the battlefield of ideas, so you have to resort to violence. You have to resort to tactics of injustice. We know we are right on the principle of the matter. We know we are right on the substance of the matter and the facts of the matter. So guess what? No matter what happens, you can't break my spirit. You can't break our spirit. Now, so what should we be doing? Well, what we should do is peaceful protests that disrupt the system to the point where nothing can get done economically. If you look throughout history, what happens when regimes start losing money beyond belief? They panic, and then they give concessions. Look at apartheid, for example. What happened in apartheid? International sanctions. They went, oh my God, okay, Nelson Mandela's right. You guys get equal rights now. This is what has happened historically. And by the way, you want to talk about a record of success? Look at what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. Look at what Gandhi did. Nonviolence, freed his people. In the U.S., we got the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act from nonviolence. The problem with violence is that you cannot make a logical argument that you are right when you start engaging in the same tactics as your enemies are using. Because now what's going to happen? The people who disagree with us are going to turn around and go, you see, typical. We told you they were bad people to begin with, so why do you think they're burning down small businesses? Why do you think they're burning cars? Why do you think they're vandalizing and looting? See, this was never about Michael Brown to begin with, because somebody's running out of the dollar store right now or the liquor store with some alcohol. Now, how are we supposed to respond to that when people make that argument, when that's what's happening in some cases? We can't logically respond to that. All we can say is those people are wrong and they don't represent the majority. And they are wrong and they don't represent the majority. But that sets us back. That sets us back, okay? The way that we get things done is to stick by our principles when times get tough. This is a point nobody brings up anymore. That all of a sudden when the going gets tough, you have people who are supposed liberals who are like, well, no, now we got to give in because now we might need to do violence because, we got to get these desired end results. But what good is a principle of action if You don't stick by it when times get rough. When times get rough, that's when you should more stick to the principles of nonviolence and the game plan that was laid out for us by previous civil rights leaders. That's when we more abide by that. Do peacefully protest. Do refuse. Everybody take off from work, march in the streets, get everybody out there. Make it so that the government says the economy can't fucking function unless we get things done. And by the way, what should we demand? Well, what we should demand is the demilitarization of the police. We should demand police wearing cameras all the time. This should all be at a federal level, federal laws. Demilitarize, make them wear cameras. This is unrelated, but also end the drug war so we get rid of a reason to harass young black men in America. And we should call for substantive reforms in a substantive way. Do not engage in violent tactics because then our message gets lost and people will only point at that and say, see, these people, I told you these people weren't serious because look at what they're doing.